This next section is called The Gods of Conversation, keeping you up to date with what's happening worldwide so you sound smart even though you're not. Something that I've noticed is people, when you're in a conversation, if they're talking about what's happening in China or what's happening in the US or just like historical stuff or stuff around the economy, they just seem smarter.
They sound smarter, even if no one can like refute anything that they're saying.
Yeah. But doesn't mean they are smarter. They've just read the news. So what Pace and I have done is collected some of the hottest news worldwide, snippets that are going on to help make you sound more intelligent in the next conversation.
We're not going to get into the details. No one wants to know the details. We're going to give you what you need to impress your friends and family.
Just all you need to know that's happening around the world. So I'm very excited. I've got a bunch of really cool articles.
I think you've done better in preparation than I have, but we'll see.
Okay.
We'll see.
Who wants to go first?
I think you want to go first.
All right, this is an easy one, something you might not have known, but celebrations at midnight as Shanghai reopens after a draconic 2-month COVID-19 lockdown.
I know, another one.
Did you know that someone was still doing lockdown in 2022?
Like we just went to Bali. There's no masks, no
I haven't
nothing.
thought about COVID for ages.
Yeah.
And so, following 2 months of frustration, despair, and economic loss, Shanghai's draconian COVID-19 lockdown is largely over, releasing 25 million residents who can now freely leave the home and return to work.
Yeah, there you go.
Crazy.
So someone was still in lockdown until yesterday.
You just forget, don't you?
That's so sickening.
You just forget.
Well, I guess the other thing that you could say if you wanted to sound smart is you were like, I saw this article like, Xi Jinping in controlling coronavirus has severely damaged the Chinese economy. And they're apparently really struggling because they still have like really draconian measures in place, even though like it's 3 years on now?
Exactly. And COVID always comes up in conversation. So you can pull up, well, I don't know if you heard, but Shanghai just got out of COVID. Oh, really?
Yeah.
How'd you hear that? Yeah. 2 months I've spent, 25 million people. Now, there are still some restrictions still in place with residents required to wear masks and public and restaurant dining has been banned. And they will have to be tested. So my God. They have to be tested every 72 hours to take public transport and enter public venues.
Oh my God. That's crazy. That's a good fact, actually.
That's a good one. So there you go.
Because if someone else is like, well, Shanghai's out of lockdown, well, you can be like, well, actually,
sort of.
It's worse than it ever was here.
But there you go. Australia. Now, look, I'm not going to make any judgments because when we were in lockdown, everyone was making fun of us, but we managed to bring deaths way down.
Yeah, we're not here to share opinions. No. We're just here to share.
This isn't opinions. Yeah. It's just the facts.
Like every news article says. Did you know that Russia has now cut off gas to the Netherlands, Denmark, and Germany?
I did hear that actually in my research.
How crazy is that though?
Yes.
To think that like the power could just go out or like your gas burner could just not work anymore because someone turned the tap off in a different country.
Yeah, I mean the economic impacts of the Russian war has been very interesting. Like I don't know if you saw so many companies were like pulling out of Russia. And now they're just coming straight back in as like the hype of the war has kind of died down a little bit.
We were talking to actually two Russian people in Bali, and they're obviously very sympathetic to the Ukrainian side of things. They don't want conflict.
That's why they're away
That's probably why they're away from Russia. But they were saying that like McDonald's and stuff, they all left in like a big, media fanfare because of the war, but they've all just come back with different names.
Yeah.
And it's
doesn't it sum up corporations?
Yeah.
They do everything purely for money, as in like image. It's like when like all these companies were going LGBTQ friendly, putting flags. It's like, but why don't you have any LGBT people in your company?
Totally.
It's like they just want to look like they're doing stuff.
So, all right, how can you sound smart about this? You can be like, well, one of the interesting things is that Germany relies like so heavily on Russia for its gas.
Right.
Like,
when you say gas, you mean petrol?
It's gas pipelines.
So like actual gas is in like the compound.
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't know whether it's delivered in liquid form, but it's fuel.
Because Americans call petrol gas.
Yeah, I know. How confusing is that?
Yeah, that's why I'm getting confused here.
Oh, I'm confused.
I'm pretty sure it's petrol. Well, not petrol, but fuel.
No, because it's talked like I'm reading a British article and they said gas, and they
mean gas isn't what we pump our like little bottles in to power a barbecue, like a gas heater sort of
gas,
thing.
like the gas heaters, because a lot of these countries are like
freezing
cold, so they have like gas heaters, like gas burners for the stove and stuff like that. A lot of people have gas fired hot water tanks and stuff like that. So it's like it's a big deal.
Yeah,
it's a big deal. Apparently, they reckon they can like Netherlands, Denmark, and Germany reckon they can last until the end of the year with like getting gas from different places rather than from Russia. But like as a long-term issue, that's crazy.
Well, speaking of the Russian war, here's a great fact that you can pull in to make yourself sound smart.
Okay.
So frenzied Russian push claims half of a Ukrainian city. And this is a really important city to win. So Russian forces, in a frenzied push, have seized half of the eastern Ukrainian city of, I'm not even going to pronounce it. That is the key to Moscow's efforts to quickly complete the capture of the industrial Donbas region, the mayor says. So the city is essentially being destroyed ruthlessly block by block. So Russian have managed to take over. It feels like the Russian news has really died quite a bit, at least for me.
Yeah.
But all this is still happening. 13,000 civilians are sheltered and running the ruined city. Suspected to be more than 100,000 civilians that are also being impacted by this specific takeover.
Displaced or whatever.
So yeah, there's a great little fact that you can pull in conversation that,
no good at all. There was another thing that came up, and this is more specific to Australia, but it was, so the Labor government has just won, which is like the left-leaning, like big political party in Australia. And they just scraped through with a majority government. So the interesting conversation here is that, like, if they'd had a minority government, then the Greens and the Independents would have had more power, which you could argue, depending on how you think, would have been a better result because the Independents are the people calling for like independent corruption committees, more action on climate change, more transparency between big business and how they fund political parties and stuff like that. So like I've heard a lot of people being like, oh, it's great that they've got a majority government because they can actually do stuff. But the big parties are the big parties. Like
they've always got so many layers of like people they have to please.
Bureaucracies, people.
And that is a cool thing about independence. And that being said, this is the most independence Australia's seen in recent history. Like get into government, which is very interesting to see what's going to happen. I'm curious. This is the first time I've been like interested in politics because normally I'm just like, I don't know, I'm not educated, but now I'm like, okay, this is interesting. We've got a lot of different people coming in.
So the thing that I would drop into the conversation would be like, well, it would have actually been interesting to see the independents have more of a voice.
But that being said, they still do have a voice.
Yeah.
And you can see how intelligent we're sounding right now. This could be you guys, right?
I know.
I don't even know what I'm saying right now.
If you were to scratch beneath the surface of this conversation, we would know absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
But
I got a good one here.
Okay.
So Biden says Ardern's leadership is critical as US tackles mass shootings.
So Jacinda Ardern.
Yes. So US President Joe Biden has enlisted the help of New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern as he attempts to tackle the gun violence and an online-fueled extremism after this month's mass shooting in Buffalo, Texas. Yeah. As America mourns the victims of the attacks, Biden met with Ardern at the White House on Wednesday to discuss the tragedies along with climate change, Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and the rise of China in the Indo-Pacific. Mm-hmm. Which is really cool because New Zealand is tiny.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like New Zealand punches above its weight in terms of like news and how much people hear about it.
Mainly because of the Lord of the Rings films.
Yeah, and like the rugby or something.
Yeah.
But it's like it's 4 million people.
It's crazy.
It's tiny. We're talking about the size of Sydney, one city.
Wow.
But Jacinda Ardern has done a phenomenal job. So, there's a great little thing. So, I don't know if you heard, but Jacinda and Joe Biden have partnered up to see how she can help the US government. Little Australian New Zealand Prime Minister, going to help the big guns. So good little piece of, and the reason he's kind of brought her out is how well she dealt with the Christchurch killings. I didn't remember that.
Yeah.
So something happened in Christchurch and so she dealt with it really, really well. So he's kind of seeking her counsel, which is interesting.
We'd love to see that. All right. That's about as much news as I could stomach.
Mate, I got a lot.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
All right, let's do it.
Shall I fly through it?
Yeah, fly through
it. All right. So there recently was, I don't know if you heard a missing plane crash in Nepal.
That sounds Nepaling.
Yeah. So Kathmandu specifically, researchers searching a mountainside in Nepal on Monday recovered the bodies of 21 and 22 people who were on board a plane that crashed a day earlier. So again, good little piece of info
plane
to just chuck in.
There you go.
Plane crash in Nepal.
Why not?
Easy one to pull out.
Oh, here it is on my page.
Right there. There you go.
Right there.
What else do we want? I'll get 2 more. Can I do 2 more?
Yeah, you can do 2 more.
All right.
We might have to cut some of this down. But
well, after the horrific killings in Texas leading on to that, Canada is capping the number of handguns in the country as part of a crackdown on firearms. So the Canadian government has introduced a draft legislation that will put a freeze on importing, buying or selling handguns. We are capping the number of handguns in this country, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said to the bill, which was introduced on Monday as is sure to be passed. The legislation is expected to be enacted later this year, and Canada has already got plans to ban 1,500 types of military-style guns and offer mandatory buyback program. Canada has far fewer mass shootings in the US, in part because of the lack of easy access to guns, but they still want to make it even more
that's
difficult.
Basically similar to what Australia did.
Just not as intense.
Not as intense, but yeah.
But again, You love to see it, and
Interesting.
super interesting.
Well, do you love to see it? I mean, I'm sure we have plenty of US listeners who.
I love to see it.
Yeah, you love to see it?
I'm all for. I mean, yeah, I'm all for it.
Well,
Especially the fact that you can buy semi-automatic guns is mind blowing.
yeah.
Like mind blowing. Like you shouldn't be able to kill 20 people. That happened in Texas. Like if you had a handgun with 4 bullets, you can't do that.
There's probably no reasonable explanation for why you would need to be able to kill that many people.
Well, there's no reasonable explanation to need a semi-automatic gun as well.
Yeah.
Anyway, we've got one more.
Okay.
And this is a tough one. This is a really sad one, actually. This is the uncomfortable truth facing Daniel Ricciardo as
Ricciardo.
Let me say it again. The uncomfortable truth facing Daniel Ricciardo as Formula One exit nears.
Okay.
So there's some, I don't know if you've been keeping up with the F1, but there are
Yeah.
some pieces that you look forward to in writing. This isn't one of them because it's becoming increasingly clear that Daniel Ricciardo we knew and loved is seemingly gone forever. The whispers are growing louder that the 32-year-old won't be at McLaren in 2023, despite the fact he has an 18-month contract. McLaren boss Zach Brown conceded as much as last week when he said that Ricciardo hadn't met the team's expectations and admitted there were mechanisms in the contract which could see the Australian leave by the end of 2022.
Interesting.
Which is sad because he is Australian.
Yeah.
He's the only Australian F1 driver right now.
Yeah.
And Australia has quite a big audience. But he's just been, like, he's getting creamed by his teammate.
Yeah.
Like, absolutely creamed. Like,
Yeah.
the last race, his teammate started in 5th and he was like 14th or something.
Yeah.
So sad news for the Aussie F1 driver, but it's a brutal sport.
Yeah. Well, I saw a clip from the recent F1 where Leclerc was pulling into like second pit stop in a couple of laps because they fucked up his tire rotation. And he was just like, what the fuck are you guys doing? And he lost his first place in Monaco to Red Bull.
Red Bull, yeah.
No, it was an interesting race, but I don't know much about F1, but it's always useful to throw in. F1 is one of those things that like, I feel like the people that talk about F1 are like always super impressed if you also
I was about to say, this is actually a really good one to make yourself sound smarter because F1's getting really popular right now. And if you know nothing about it, you can't fit in. But if you have one piece of information, just be like, so what are your thoughts? If you just jump
I don't think
like,
Daniel Ricciardo is going to be with McLaren in
2023, bang.
Yeah.
And they'll keep talking and they'll have the like idea that you were involved, even though all you did was plug that little seed.
Another conversation tip, which I know Byron is big on, get people talking about themselves.
Yeah.
Have a little nugget that you can throw in and then just ask them questions.
Yeah.
Then they'll like you more.
That's it. So that's our segment.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's cool.
I enjoy doing that. It's definitely different, right? And I think we'll get better at kind of not necessarily just reading the news article.
I think it's good though.
Yeah.
I was reading like the top paragraph. That's
I feel like I know what's happening in the world right now.
I feel like I know a few things. So
Which happens when you don't read the news. And then
So I don't know. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that.
Anyway, you're all
very
welcome.
educational.